Okay, so our next topic in this unit of whole numbers is rounding and estimation with whole numbers. And I'm going to quickly go through some examples on rounding and estimating, and then we'll do some class examples, and then you guys can get to your homework. Okay, so usually in our everyday lives, we don't always need to be using exact numbers or exact calculations. Like if you're shopping or if you're going on a trip, usually you're going to estimate how much money you need, for example. So we use estimations, and we get those estimations by rounding off numbers. So for example, if we have here a marine biologist, they're going to make an estimate that there's about maybe 3 million jackfish in a lake. If we are going to the grocery store, usually you're going to roughly estimate how much your grocery bill is going to be, because you kind of have a list in your head of what you're going to buy. So for example, you're estimating, I'll need about $75 to go to the grocery store today. If you're going on a vacation, here's a little bit more detailed list here of expected vacation expenses for a 1 week period. So for example, food, you're going to estimate I need about $300 for the week, maybe more. Yeah, nowadays everything's so much more expensive. Gas, $200, hopefully, probably not. Lodging, so hotels or motels or wherever you're staying, you're going to have a rough estimate. Here it's $350, but probably way more now. How much are you going to spend on maybe other miscellaneous things? Maybe $500. Gifts, maybe you're going to go to the gift stores and so on. Maybe $400. I don't know. So it's pretty impossible to calculate the actual cost before the trip. So that's why you're going to use estimates. All right. So here the estimate for this 1 week vacation, they've estimated $1,750. If an exact answer is required, you can still do an estimate first, round off the numbers, and do a calculation with those numbers, and then you can compare your answer with the actual number afterwards. And it basically gives you a good indication if your answer is logical or correct. So here we're going to look at the rules for rounding off numbers. The example we're using is 8,347. All right, so we are rounding 8,347 to the nearest tens place. So the first thing you have to do, find the number that's in the target place. So in this example, it's the tens place, and we have the 4 in the tens place. That's the number that's going to be affected. Next, you're going to look at the number on the right. All right, it says here, look at the number after our target number. That's the number on the right, and that's the number 7. All right, if the number to the right is a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then that target number is going to stay the same. So the 4 would stay the same. If the number to the right is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then that target number is going to increase by 1. So in our example, to the right we have a 7. That is 5 or greater. So therefore our 4, which was in the tens place, will now increase by 1, and it'll change to 5, and then the ones place becomes 0. So rounding 8,347 to the nearest 10 becomes 8,350. All right, let's take that same number, 8,347. Let's round it to the nearest 100, and let's round it to the nearest thousands. So I'll let you guys try that. So we're rounding 8,347 to the nearest 100. All right, so go to your hundreds place. There it is. You have the 3 in the hundreds place. I'll just put an underline there. So then you're going to look at what's beside it to the right. It's a 4. All right, since it's less than 5, we're going to leave the 3 as is and 0, 0 for the tens and ones place. So that's rounded to the nearest 100. Here, round 8,347 to the nearest thousand. So there's our thousands place. Look at the number on the right, it's a 3. So the 8 stays the same. And fill in the zeros for the other places. So we end up with 8,000 when we round to the nearest thousand. All right, often when using mathematics, an estimate will suffice as opposed to an actual calculation. So we usually round off first, then you can calculate with numbers that are easier to work with. All right, so here we're going to take 3,274 to the nearest 10. What should it be? And then we have 42,938. We're going to round it to the nearest thousand. What should it be? So example 1, round 3,274 to the nearest 10. All right, so 10's place, that's the 7. Right there is the 7. And look to the right, it's a 4. All right, it's less than 5, so that's just going to become 3,270. All right, so make sure you guys got that for your answer. Next, we have 42,938, and we're rounding it to the nearest thousand. A thousand's place is right here. It's a 2. Look to the right. It's a 9. So therefore, the 2 is going to go up 1, and it becomes 43,000. Common mistake students make is they'll just say 3,000, and they'll forget the 4 in front. That's wrong. Imagine you were told to round, you have $42,938 in your bank account, and you were told to round it to the nearest thousand, and you said 3,000 compared to 43,000, right? So make sure you still include that number in the front of 3. All right, let's take a look at this one. The area of New Brunswick is 73,436 kilometers squared. In 1979, a long time ago, its population was 699,920. Approximately how many people per square meter in kilometers squared were there in New Brunswick in 1979? All right, so if we were going to do this with the actual numbers, we would take our 699,920 and we would have to divide it by 73,436 to get our answer. But because we can round, we can do our approximate or our estimate. I'm going to put here approximate. Yeah, we can round these numbers. Round 699,920, round that to 700,000, and divide it by, we can round 73,436, we'll round it to 70,000. Much easier to do, which gives us an answer of 10. So, how many people? About 10 people per kilometer squared. So 10 people per, that's what that slash is, per kilometers squared. In New Brunswick. In 1979. All right, so let's look at our first one. We have 35,214. And in brackets, it tells us what we're rounding to. So we're rounding to hundreds. So hundreds place, we have 2. So look to the right, that's a 1. So we're going to round to hundreds. It becomes 35,200. All right, next, 8,888. We're rounding to tens. There's our tens place. We have an 8 there. Look to the right. We have another 8. So that means we have to increase our 8 by 1. So that becomes 8,890. We're rounding 39 to the hundreds place. Well, hundreds place is here, and there's nothing there, so that would just be 0, right? And if we looked at the 3, so we'd have to go down to 0. 5,723, we're rounding to thousands, so there's our thousands place. You're going to look at the 7 on the right. It's greater than 5, so we have to increase our thousands place by 1. So that becomes 6,000. Remember, you're rounding to the thousands place. And then last one, 9,999. We're rounding to our thousands place. We have 9 on the right hand side. So this 9 has to be increased by 1. So it goes up to 10. So that becomes 10,000.